It doesn't work. Realizing
All
there's
right,
no blade.
the audio's on. I don't have any video though.
Hi, folks. We'll be with you momentarily as soon as these two techno.
There we go.
What?
There we go.
I'm not seeing any.
Why isn't it's not linking?
Sorry, everyone. Oh, this guy's not plugged in, you doofus.
Like I said, this would be like me using a hand blade, wondering why it doesn't work, realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's no blade.
We were rushed.
Oh, because I told you to come and let's be ready for an
There we
hour
go.
earlier.
There we go.
Are we on?
Yes.
We're live?
Yeah, we're live.
Some of us, yes, more than others. Can I say, what's that?
You're gonna be 10 seconds behind.
Yeah, they're
There you
here.
go.
They see you.
Hi, folks. Welcome to tonight's broadcast, which is on chair making. So I thought I would start in a seated position. And I have some examples of chairs that are seating instruments that I've built over the course of the last 40 years. This is our Purple Heart Saturday evening YouTube workshop live, where we answer your questions. And in exchange for answering your questions and giving you great advice, we ask that you participate and contribute to our Purple Heart project, which is where we bring in combat wounded veterans and treat them to a 6-day, very intense hand tool workshop. We do it 6 times a year, COVID providing. We weren't able to hold it in 2021. We have our fingers crossed tightly for 20.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
We were not able to do it in 2020. We have our fingers crossed tightly for 2021. So, God willing.
Sneaky Pete says you look tired.
I'm not tired. I just had a wonderful meal Erica cooked for us. I'll come to life here momentarily. I'm just trying to make sure I catch everything. We have Jake behind the camera, Frick behind the microphone. We have Rex over there leaning against the saw. We have Megan behind you enjoying her supper, and I'm here. Thanks to Santa Claus, we have a great giveaway tonight. So what we do is interact with you for the next 2 hours, give you as much information as you can stand, answer as many questions as possible. We have Mickey on the set. And we also have a draw. So at the end of the night, we'll give away a pair of Pinnacle Spokeshaves. Tried to figure out what would be the most fitting tool for chair making. So Spokeshaves actually was Jake's suggestion. So for every $1,000 increment we reach in donations, we will do a draw for a pair of Spokeshaves, curved bottom and flat bottom. You're getting the pair.
don't have that
Well, let's hope we have to back order them because we have such
There's no
generosity
back orders
out there tonight. We're also giving away a dead cat sweater, compliments of my friend Moose at patssecretgarden.com. And these have become extremely popular. You can wear it in 10 below weather and it keeps you warm and it's light as a feather. So we'll give away a captain's hoodie. It says on the side of the hood, I'm the captain. Actually, that one says, sorry, I did that wrong. Captain's always right, I'm the captain. A dead cat sweater and a Naughty Girl t-shirt. You tell us what size if you're the lucky winner. If you aren't and you'd like to get one, and trust me, if you live in a cold climate, you just have to have one of those. It's essential. I just bought my second one.
Jake.
Anyway, you
What-
can go to Pat's
what-
Secret Garden to get it. What's the matter?
It's his fault.
Frick shut my camera off.
Yeah.
No video? Is this going to be a night of faux pas and
Sure.
are we back on?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to do 2 commercials tonight. We're also going to give away, thanks to Jake.
I don't know.
Yeah, you do.
Nope, I don't.
Mark. No, is it Mark or Matt?
Matt.
Matt. This is intarsia. So this mousse is made up of poplar, walnut, and I'm going to say that's probably elm. Actually, it says in the back. No, that's butternut. Sorry, butternut, black walnut, and ebonized black walnut. So he's got some darker walnut that's been ebonized, actually maybe the eye. and poplar on the bottom. So all those pieces are cut to turn into a piece of art. So it'll look great on your wall. We'll draw for that as well. And thank you, Matt. Okay, I'll do my commercials later, and I'll do some more say hellos. And if you're a combat wounded vet that has been to one of our classes as one of our scholarship vets, and you'd like to, we'd love to acknowledge you. Just how do they do it? How do they do it?
Easiest way is just to let us know in the chat. I think Megan's going to monitor it. So
I thought they do something Megan so it stands out.
Oh, if they tag Megan, so if you type the @ sign and start typing Megan's name, start with MEA, and they can select her name, and then that way she gets a notification.
Okay, and then we can give you a shout out. Okay, first question, Frick. Got one?
Nope.
That a boy. All right, well then let's start over here, and I'm going to show you some chairs that I've built. A chair is a difficult... What?
Seating.
Seating, yes.
Furniture.
Well, you can call them chairs.
I got one.
Well, I'm just getting started, Frick. Hold it.
Go ahead.
So, chair it's either comfortable or it's not. But also, Rex, do me a favor and go get one of those wiggly chairs that we just sat on and had dinner on. I want to bring that in as an example. Nice shoes.
Thanks.
So, it has to be comfortable and it has to be strong. So, one of the very first big commissions that I got was to replace all of the seating in a private school. So it was seating for 200. I had to build tables and chairs for 200. And this was the prototype. They wanted kind of a country look, but it had to be rugged because it was going to be used in an institutional setting. So I'll explain to you throughout the night. If somebody wants to know, we'll talk about the joinery. But here's the best part that I can tell you. Here's the one from our own house. We've had for probably 25 years, maybe longer. And this chair has been, it started off maple. My wife painted it numerous times. I can see that it was blue one time, black and yellow. But gone through 10 children and no squeaky joints, still solid as a rock. And if somebody hit you with that, like on a movie, you'd die. So I'll introduce the other pieces as we go throughout the night. So let's have your question, Frick.
Okay. Shoot, where'd it go?
You're umming already?
No, I had. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this one comes from Glenn Dornack in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Hi, Glenn.
He says, there's some woods that are better for chairs than others.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's take a look at this. This went from being a prototype to just being something we use around the shop to stand on, to pile lumber on, everything. So the most pressure or stress is right here. Everybody leans back on their chair. And if you think about the amount of leverage, let's say you weigh 200 pounds, and there'd be at least 100 pounds of your weight sitting out here, somewhere in this area. And all that pressure is compounded by how far away the load is compared to where the fulcrum is. And what's the other part of that equation, Frick? You got your fulcrum, you've got your load.
I forget.
Oh, that a boy. Anyway, a lot of stress right here. So if this was made out of pine, this would collapse. There's no way it would be strong enough. I wouldn't even trust it out of poplar. However, I would expect that most commercial chairs are made out of poplar and then stained to look like another wood. What I've done right here, this piece of wood, we'll call this the stretcher or an apron, we'll call it a stretcher, has 2 tenons. Instead of one big one, in order to maintain integrity of this piece. And you see a dowel right here? That's only because I had purposely not glued this together. You look at this section, there's no dowel. So I built this up, as I said, as a prototype, and I had to be able to take it apart. I wanted to show the people that I was doing the proposal for. So that can be taken apart. I just put that together. Anyway, now I can't remember my train of thought. But what's going on here, this piece has 2 tenons separated. So there's 2 mortises in this leg to maintain the integrity of the piece without having a great big huge piece missing. There's a tenon here. There's a tenon that comes through here, and then there's a space, and then there's a mortise down here that the tenon comes in, and that section in the middle helps to hold this all together. those tenons come almost back there. So I would say they're about 1/8 of an inch away from the surface. Now, there's very little stress this way, so this joint does not get stressed nearly as much. So what I have here, at the end of these two pieces, I have a 1/2-inch dowel, 1/2-inch maple dowel. And it's back into here quite a ways, so the deeper the dowel, the more glue surface you have, the stronger the joint. And then that dowel goes through, and it pierces this cheek, it pierces the tenon, and then it goes into the next cheek and stops probably 3/16 of an inch shy. So it literally locks this tenon. That one dowel hits the top tenon, second dowel hits the bottom tenon. So I can guarantee that the wood will fail before this joint will ever break. Same thing is done up here, so both of those. So when you're doing that, and you're dealing with relatively small portions of the wood, so a hardwood is going to be the best. A hardwood for this type of a chair. If you look at, now I didn't make this one. A friend of mine in Ottawa made this. This is a Windsor. What? We lose them again?
No, for some reason your audio's cutting in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So this is a Windsor rocker, and it is made out of ash, because ash bends well. So these pieces are made out of ash. The seat is made out of pine, but it's a thick piece of pine. It's probably 1.5 inches through here. So in that thickness, it would be plenty strong. The legs look like they're made out of oak. All the spindles are made out of oak. These top spindles look like they're made out of oak as well. And the slats, the rockers on the bottom themselves look like they're made, that looks like elm actually, but it might be ash as well. So you're going to choose a wood. Choose something that is definitely strong enough. Birch, maple, hickory, cherry, walnut. But I would definitely stay away from the softer woods like pine. I don't think I would even use poplar. All right,
Yeah,
next.
they can all be used for the seat itself.
Yeah, well, the
made
seat.
of
If you've got something where you're gonna carve out the seat, go easy on yourself. And if you can keep it in a fairly heavy piece, for instance, this is a shaker bench. So this seat is made out of pine. There's a lot of wood that had to be removed. But again, it's in a big chunk. It's probably 1.75 inches thick at its thickest spot. So there's lots of mass there, so you're not having to worry. But you certainly wouldn't make these back spindles out of pine. They need to be a hardwood. Okay, Frick, next.
Okay, next question comes from
Megan, any vets to shout out?
Doc Bailey.
Hi, Doc.
Kevin.
Welcome.
Wait, can I hear you?
Just have him repeat it.
Kevin, Doc Bailey. Kevin, do you have a mic? You had a little black one for her?
Someone in their ear.
Oh. Kevin Smira. Kev.
Sarah and Philip Lawrence.
Philip Lawrence. Our regulars. Keep me posted. Go ahead, Frick. Sorry.
All right, this one comes from Dan Else in Culpeper, Virginia. And he says, "What is the best
Hi,
joint?
Dan.
What is the best joint to control racking at the point where the chair seat meets the chair back?"
No, that's what I just answered. Let's talk about this one. This is a typical factory-made chair, and this is what you're going to find. Rex, I wanted a different one. It's a little bit smaller than this, but it's also wiggly. So these are all dowels. I guarantee if you take it apart, it's about to fall apart fairly soon anyway. In fact, come here, Jake. Can you see down through there? See that joint? So there's 2 dowels in there, all doweled together. The dowels are a terrible method of joinery in areas of high stress. If you think about the surface area, the amount of long grain to long grain surface area in a dowel, now that the perimeter of the dowel is all long grain, but when it goes into the end of this piece, there's only part of it is long grain, and when it goes into here, there's even less. Because when you drill a hole in like this, at least half, if not more, of the surface area making contact with the dowel is going to be end grain. So the top part of the circle is going to be end grain. The bottom part of the circle is going to be end grain. You got a little bit of long grain on both sides. So it's not the, no, not the one with arms. You go through and find another one like this, looks a little smaller, and it's wiggly. So dowels, no. Mortise and tenon, yes. You know which ones not to use. They're the ones that you see. And if you've ever seen any furniture that's been around any amount of time, you'll always find loose joints. There's another one out of that same set. And it's just, you know, you've got 3/4 inch material, and you've got a couple of dowels going in there. And even though they've reinforced it with glue blocks on the underside, you can't expect that to last very long. It's it's fast, easy to do, but by no means is it the best joint for furniture, for chairs. I would say mortise and tenon, and anything that locks a mortise and tenon. The first, I actually did another set of these for a guy who's now my accountant. And I brought these through and wedged them. So these were through wedge tenons front and back. Way too much work. And it wasn't really a good choice because it further weakened the leg because you were actually cutting that mortise all the way through. Anytime you can leave a little extra material around the mortise, you're going to strengthen that particular member. So by putting a double mortise here, instead of one great big one.
Oh, you mean you did...
I put through wedge tenons.
Through wedge
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. So you cut all that center section out, and by not bringing the mortise all the way through, that back part just helps to strengthen the joint. Next, Rick.
All right, we got a question from Joe Bright, actually.
Hey, Joe.
And
Joe's combat wounded vet down in Southern California, although he's from eastern part of the country. He's living down there near San Diego.
all right, his question is, any tips for someone wanting to make a rocking chair with only hand tools, specifically the rocker portion?
Say that again, please.
Any tips for someone wanting to make a rocking chair with only hand tools, specifically the rocker portion?
Well, these rockers were laminated. So we made a form, which isn't hard to do. You know, I always used particle board. You buy a sheet of particle board for next to nothing and glue several pieces together, and you create the form on the bandsaw, and sometimes you have to clean it up a little bit on some kind of an edge sander. And then there's several pieces of Paducah in here. I don't know how many. They look to be about 1/4 inch thick, so there's probably 5 of them, and they're glued around the form. If you're going to do this, you're going to want to use a slow-setting glue. And have your form, put your pieces in, clamp it. When it dries, it stays put. It doesn't have memory, meaning it doesn't go spring back to what it was. You can also steam bend it, but then when you steam bend, there is some memory involved. So if you want a radius like that with steam bend, you're probably going to have to steam bend it a little bit more, because when you take it out, it'll bounce back just a little bit. The laminating parts are, I think, much more predictable. And if I was doing it with just hand tools, well, if we were going to do what I just suggested, we could cut all those strips, hand plane them, get a perfect finish on it, cut them to
What
width.
do you use the hand to cut the strips?
Hand saw.
1/4 inch strips? A bunch of them?
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably, if I was going to do that, Joe, I would start with a section, a big piece of wood that was as thick as I wanted these to be wide. So let's say that was going to finish off at 1.5 inches. I would take a piece of lumber, dimension it by hand, so it was 1.5 inches thick. And then you're just slicing off your pieces, and you just have to clean up your 2 saw cuts. And that would be actually fairly easy, especially if you use your bench as a big shooting board, like I've used it numerous times. Just have your plane sitting on its edge like that. So after every saw cut that you make, to take off one of those 1/4 inch pieces, you go in and you straighten up that edge, make the next saw cut, and then at least you've got 1, 2, 3 surfaces finished. You're just having to plane the middle one as the last one, that get rid of the saw marks. Bend that around the form, and then the final shaping is, this one was done mostly was done on a bandsaw. a lot of the shaping, but the final shaping was done with spokeshaves, rasps, draw knives. So no problem. In fact, those Windsor chairs are done mostly, almost entirely. Luther is at Port Townsend is in Port Townsend at the what's the name of the school? Port Townsend Elementary? No, what's not it? What is it?
No, that's where he was last year.
Graduated.
It's,
It's Jim Tolpin's school, and he's there for 4 months to build several pieces of furniture. And the first thing they did was, they didn't do a rocker, but they did a Windsor chair. And all the parts are processed by hand, so it's not hard. Today, that's how they're usually made. Windsors. Have fun with it. Next, Frick.
Okay, next one comes from Christian Estrada in Guatemala.
Hi, Christian.
He says, what are some design features that a chair needs to be comfortable?
Good question. So, fast food restaurants actually make this a science. And what they're aiming for is a chair that is comfortable when you initially sit down, but it works on your pressure points enough that after about 10 to 12 minutes, they've got it timed. It becomes uncomfortable and you leave. They don't want you hanging around. You're there only as long as it takes to consume their product, and if you're not going to buy more, get out so somebody else can come in. So when I designed this chair, I didn't, it was my first go-round. No, it wasn't. That's not true either. I had designed chairs in university. But you want the seat, I'm going to take this from memory. I think you want a 3-degree slope on the seat. So this, if you were to draw a line that was parallel to the ground, this chair seat would slope back 3 degrees. I can't remember the angle on the back. Sorry. I'm sure it's something you can easily access. You don't want pressure underneath here, so you got to get the height just right, and that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. This is a flat chair. There's no contouring to this, so we've used them in our home, and they're plenty comfortable. You could probably sit there I've sat around the table with people.
all of the guests stay just as long as we want them to.
Yeah, exactly. It's the noise that usually drives ours out, not the uncomfortable chairs. But I find these surprisingly comfortable. This is contoured for your bum. That's Sam Malouf design that I built in 1987, and that's extremely comfortable. And we'll talk about some more. What was the rest of his question? Read it again for me, please.
What are some design features that a chair needs to be comfortable?
So you got to have the right angle tilting back. I've seen commercially available chairs where the back was straight up, and that's extremely uncomfortable. It's got you pushing forward like that. So you want just enough. When I did this, I just put a gentle slope on here so it would kind of accept your back and cradle you. You don't want, if that was a flat back, it would be right into your spine. That wouldn't be very comfortable. So this kind of rests on your lats. Quite comfortable. And it's high enough that it's not on my shoulder blades.
Low enough.
What?
It's low enough.
Low enough that it's it's sticking into my shoulder blades. So that's this chair. If we move over to this one, this was a piece I designed in 1988. Of course, every piece of my furniture has a history. So I have a good friend, Rex Birmingham, I went to school with. Named my first son after him. And I think Rex felt sorry for me. I was a struggling furniture maker, and he commissioned me to build him this piece, one of these. I'd already made 2 or 3 that I sold. So I built this for him. I live in New Brunswick, Eastern Canada. He lives in Utah. So the rates to ship it from Maine were a whole lot less than shipping it from here. So I had finished the chair. This is made out of ash and cherry. And there's a ton of work involved. I'll explain that as we get into it. I had made a big plywood box. I had it wrapped in plastic so that when he got it in his dry climate, the idea was just to kind of open the plastic bag just a little bit, and over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, open it a little bit more, and let it gradually acclimate. I had filled the whole box with styrofoam beans. Now I was going to put this as a plywood box, And I was going to put the top on and secure it, but I knew they'd probably want to inspect it at the border. So I put the top on. I only put a screw on one screw in the middle in the front, one in the back, one in the middle, one in the front on either end. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, I had a small pickup truck at the time, helped me load it on the back of the pickup truck. And I was going to tie it all down, but it was heavy enough. I thought, oh, that's not going anywhere. So I took off heading for the border. It was about an hour away. And I wasn't very far. I was on the highway going at 60 miles an hour. And I was going around a turn. And I looked in my rearview mirror as I saw this box levitating out of the back of my truck. And then I looked in the side view mirror and I saw it racing along the side of the pavement, passing me as I was going on a turn. It was going that way, and there was a newly constructed highway, and there was all kinds of boulders down in there, and I just saw this thing flipping end over end over end. It stayed inside the box. The top blew off. There were styrofoam beans everywhere. Let's hope they're the dissolvable ones. But all of the joints, somebody stopped and helped me load it back on the truck, and I was just, couldn't believe it. But all the joints had broken free because you can imagine it was just twisting back and forth. Now, I was able to go in, but in salvaging it, I had to screw and plug it from the ends to try to stiffen it up again, and a lot of these joints broke. So that was the story on this piece. Now, come back to what makes this comfortable. Well, these are ash slots. Now, Jake was asking me today about why did I choose ash. Well, ash is a great wood for bending. It's very flexible. It has a tendency to spring back. That's why they make a lot of, hockey sticks used to be made out of ash. Baseball bats, some are made out of ash. It's a strong wood that resists a lot of shock. So the slats were designed, they're secured up here in the front with a dovetail. So they're glued and then dovetailed in between each piece. And then back here, they fit through a slot, which allows them to bend, to flex. You can see that? So there's enough of a twist on this back crest rail. It's bent back like that it gives a little bit of a bow to these, so as you lean on them, they give. And believe it or not, as wide apart as they are, it's still quite comfortable on your bum. So there's a fair bit of give there, but a lot of these is broken loose and they've got to be repaired. I just leave it there to remind myself never again to deliver my own furniture. So that's what makes that comfortable. This shaker bench, this is not my design. Now, I think it was designed to keep parishioners from falling asleep. It's not terribly comfortable. I find it very short this way. You see, that should come out probably an extra couple of inches, but I built it according to the plans. The back crest rail is held in place by all of these spindles, and there's enough strength and spring in the spindle that when you lean on it, that gives a little bit. We have these, I built these for around our big table, and we can sit 3 people, 2 comfortably, 3 if it's a big crowd. And then of course the Sam Malouf rocker, and this is an iconic piece of furniture that Sam Malouf designed many years ago and made hundreds of them. I don't know if it's thousands or not, but that seat, I remember when I built this, we built we started off on this back spindle and we just kept shaping a prototype until it fit the contour of our back. And unfortunately, it splays a little too much. It's more likely to put you asleep than to keep you awake while you read the newspaper. But don't watch the news. You get nothing but bad news. So hopefully that helped. Next question, Frick. Another one of those, I might fall asleep.
Quick one from Mikkel Miller, Tucson.
Hi, Mikkel.
I think you might have already answered this, but when making chairs...
Miguel?
Mikkel, M-I-K-E-L-L.
Okay.
Miller from Tucson, Arizona. He says, when making chairs, is Mortise and Tenon the best joint to use?
Yes. Mortise and Tenon would be known as the chair joint. It's going to be your strongest, but you got to remember that this piece can only be as strong as this smallest part. So if you put cut this down to a little tiny tenon on the end, then that's all you've got is a big piece of wood that's going to break where that small tenon is. So you've got to be careful in your layout so as to preserve as much strength as possible, but you can't excavate a huge hole out of the piece that it's going into, so there has to be a delicate balance. That's where that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 thing comes in. 1/3 shoulder, 1/3 tenon, 1/3 shoulder. Bigger if you're going into, if I was cutting this to fit into there, I wouldn't go 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I might go more like 2/3 tenon, and then 1/6, 1/6? Yeah. 1/6 over here, 1/6 over there, because I could make a bigger hole in here, allowing this to be stronger without substantially weakening this piece. By the way, there's a double tenon up in here as well. Next, Frick.
The next one comes from David Cersei.
Let me stop right there for a second. So a lot of talk about mortise and tenons, as you would expect in chair building. We just released a video on doing a through wedge tenon. Through wedge tenon. So here's what it looks like. So there's your joint. And I always like to cut them open to show you, but that's what it looks like on the inside. And the way you construct this joint, you're actually building an internal dovetail. It's an incredibly strong way of joining two pieces of wood. So if you didn't see that, I don't know if Luther can leave a link on there or not, but we released it just maybe 2 weeks ago. And it's over an hour. It's an hour and some odd bit long, but it's thorough, and it'll walk you through the entire process of learning how to cut that joint. Any more vets, Megan?
Yeah, Bob Abbott.
Robert?
She's got to put her mic on.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Pete Ambrose.
Pete, brother.
And Kevin Burris.
Hey, Kev. Our salute to Pete Ambrose. This dovetail in the back corner always keeps me aware of my standards. Miter joint.
That's right.
Hi, Kev. Go ahead, Frick. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay, what tool is used to hollow out the seat?
Well, which seat? I presume you're talking about either one of them.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not okay. So I can't say that because this one. Shoot, I got to try to remember. Oh, so when we built this one, this was cut out of. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 6 pieces of wood. So when we built this, before we glued those up, we went over to the bandsaw and we cut out a substantial amount of that wood. You had a little side profile that you could go in and do that, which saved a lot of work. And then, I think we used a big gouge. So I'll show you what a gouge is. Also known as a carving chisel. Now I don't have, there's one. So a big gouge like that. And you can get it with varying degrees of curvature on there. And you would have to work with the grain, so you'd always be coming down like this. You wouldn't go up like that. You'd find out real quick. And we got that as smooth as possible. And then we went in and we used, we did do everything. We tried to do it the way that Sam Malouf did it. And he used an angle grinder with a fairly coarse disc to go in and do a lot of the shaping. But you had to be really careful because that disc doesn't cut evenly. If the wood is a little bit softer in some areas than others, it'll take it away more in that area. So you had to be quite careful with it. And then I think the final thing that we sand. Oh, actually, you know what? I think that's where I first discovered or first used pneumatic sanders. I'll show you what I mean. So I think everybody's probably used a palm sander before. I have no use for them. But this is a 6-inch pneumatic sander. It oscillates as well as spins around. It takes a lot of CFM, that's cubic feet per minute, from your compressor to run. It'll drain your tank really quick, but it's very powerful and it works incredibly fast. So if you're going to sand, I would suggest you get something like that. That's how that seat was done. This seat probably was done with, It could have been, I would expect all of these outside surfaces were done with either a draw knife. They may have started with a draw knife, but they would have been finished with a spoke shave. And then these, there's lots of, actually very specific, I've got a few of them, although I never use them. There's very specific chair makers tools. I'm trying to think of the name of one. It's got 2 handles on it, and it's a round, it's almost like a half round. And it's kind, if you can imagine, this is a draw knife. If you can imagine taking a draw knife, only making it this part round like that, so you can go in there and scoop, might actually be called a chair scoop. You can go in there and scoop out the wood. You always have to try to follow the grain, remember. So of the tools that I have that could also be used for working on chair seats, the gouge, draw knife, spoke shave, the other larger spoke shaves over there.
Luther says the answer is Scorp, end shave, and
Scorp.
multiple travesters.
Travesters, yes. I remember, yeah, that's a long story. So do a Google search on hand tools for making chair seats, and you'll see what I mean. But they tend to allow for creating a concave surface. Remember, anything flat works on a convex surface, but if you want something that's down in, then you have to have a shaped tool. I have a Scorp here somewhere. I don't remember the last time I saw it, or else I would have pulled it out. Would have been a good object to have. Okay, next.
All right, next question comes from Ali in Hamburg, Germany.
Hi, Ali.
He says, repairing an old chair with loose joints and pocket holes, a good idea? Question?
Oh, boy. So I used to do a little bit of furniture repair just because it was always something that you could charge, you could do in a short period of time, and you get paid right away, and people will readily pay. Back then, $40 was a lot of money to me. They would easily give you $40 to fix a chair that might have cost them $300 or $400, rather than throw it away, and they didn't know how to do it. How best to fix it? Oh, wow. So let's look at this one. What would I do? So here's the problem. That joint is now broken. So the first thing I would do is obviously take the seat off, and the seat's held on by 4 screws. So that's simple enough. Then these blocks have probably already broken too. If not, you'd be surprised how easy they come out. So I'd take those screws out and knock out the block. You almost, ideally, if all the joints were loose enough that you could get them apart, I would take them apart, scrape them out, get rid of any of the excess glue in there. You don't want to make the hole where the dowel goes in any bigger. That's already part of the problem. Clean up the dowel, scrape all the extra old glue off of it, and then re-glue everything and put it back together. Now, you're putting a dowel that's come apart back together, which means it's probably not going to last that much longer. So I would go in and I would do something underneath here. I would have cleaned this all up so we could actually glue to it. I would have put much more substantial. You know, I think for the extra weight you're adding to it, you're making a stronger chair. And by the way, these are put together with pocket screws. So they're not even, the good news there is that could easily be taken apart in order to fix this. But I would take these blocks out, and I would have put blocks in here that went right from here to here. So you had maximum surface area. I would have cleaned that all up so I could glue to it, and then I would have gone in, I would have screwed at least 2 in there and 2 over in here, all the way around, and we could have made that so it would have stayed together a lot longer. So pocket screws in the right place. If I couldn't get this apart, you possibly could have used cyanacrylate, but that can make a real mess. But you've got to get something in there. I suspect that those dowels have maintained contact to this piece because that's where the majority of the long grain to long grain glue surface is. And so I can tell actually when I move it that the dowel is moving with this piece. So it's staying with this piece, it's coming in and out of here, which is exactly what I would have expected. I don't feel like taking it apart and fixing it, or else we could discover even more. So pocket screws, fine, but usually if you can go in and you can do something with blocks that are underneath here, you don't see it, this is where that's where you're gonna be able to add a lot of extra strength to it without noticing it, other than the fact that it'll be a little bit heavier, but that's better than having somebody sit in a chair and have it fall apart. Next, Rick.
Can you show, okay, this comes from Pete in Rochester.
Hi, Pete.
He says, can you show us how to even up the chair legs after glue up when they seem uneven and rocks when put on a flat surface?
Yep.
Thanks.
Real easy. So if this chair did not have, well, here, let's use this one. If these legs were not even, I would put this on a flat surface. Come down here. If Willie's watching tonight, Willie, we can't wait for you to come back. Willie is our metal magician. He's 80 years old, retired fabricator, does all kinds of stuff for us in the shop. If you own a pair of our bench casters that he makes nice and strong, then you've got something that Willie has made. And he fell about a month ago, and as a result, he ended up in the hospital recently with a brain bleed on both sides. So he's been in there for a couple of weeks. So we're wishing him all the best, and hopefully he'll be out soon. So I would take this chair, I'd put it up on a flat surface like that. Now if it's rocking, first of all, I want it to sit level, so I'd put a level on there and find out where I need to be. And if it's, of course, the easy part would be you've got one leg that's too long. So you would isolate that one, and I would come in with a flush trim saw, and I would take a block of wood. I'll show you, I'll try to do this a little more. If I had to remove 1/8 of an inch off of one leg, grab 1/8 of an inch piece of material. There's some 1/8 inch ply. I think I've got a little scrap of it over here. Well, never when you want to find it, but let's bump that up to 3/16 of an inch. So if I had to, whatever amount you need to remove, find the leg that's the offender, clamp this in place so it doesn't move, set the block representing the amount you need to remove, put that there using a flush trim saw. Just come in there. Now I wouldn't trust a flush trim to maintain a nice straight cut all the way. So what I would do, I would get in there and I would make part of a cut, and then I would work my way around, and then I would just keep working my way around so that I had a cut all the way. And then you could go in there and finish it, and hopefully those cuts on opposite sides will help to keep this saw tracking so you get a nice cut. And you always want to make sure that you either chamfer or quarter round the bottom edge. If you don't, whenever this chair gets, somebody sits in it, you know, they're sitting at your dining room table, and when they go to get up, they push back like this. Well, if that catches anything, and if that doesn't have a protective chamfer or radius, it's going to break fibers off of there, and it'll just keep going and getting worse and worse. So that's how I trim the leg of a chair. Now, if you had 3 long ones and 1 short one, then you've got to do that same job 3 times. So hopefully you just end up with one leg that's a little too long. Easiest way to do it. Next, Frick.
Okay, next question. Next question comes from One Deer in Dingo in the chat. That's
One Deer in Dingo?
Yeah, that's the username. He says, when using 2 tenons into the rear leg, is there a ratio of how much tenon to how left leg left? Doesn't make sense.
Well, so what he's asking is, what's the ratio? How much tenon to how much shoulder? and how much mortise. And that's where you have to remember that the thinnest piece is going to represent the weakest link in the whole process. So I was using my tenons, or my stretchers, on this chair. By the way, the seat's never been put back on, so we can just remove it and look at it. Now remember, this was built for strength and durability, so that's actually 13/16. And the leg it's going into is 1 3/8. If I remember correctly, I made these tenons a 1/2 inch wide. So that meant this is a piece of maple. So the weakest part of this is going to be a 1/2 inch. Now, you don't need much shoulder. So in other words, I can keep that tenon, I can make that tenon quite long. All I need is enough shoulder to cover the joint. So let's say I had 1/8 of an inch at the top and 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. Then my tenon is now going to be 3 5/8 of an inch long by 1/2 inch wide. Now that's a piece of maple, and that's plenty strong. You would never break a 13/16 inch thick piece of maple in this application, and I'm going to guess and say you'd never break a piece of 1/2 inch either. So by going with a 1/2 inch, that means I'm going to be left with 1 3/8. I'm going to have 7/8. So I've got a 7/16 inch piece of leg on either side of that hole or that mortise that I just chopped. And remember, I left I made 2 mortises instead of, oh, I just lied to you. Shoot. Remember, I divided that in 2. So there's a sacrifice. So instead of having one long tenon, which would make this a lot stronger, but it would weaken the leg because you'd have a hole that was a 1/2 inch wide that was 3 5/8 of an inch long, which I think just takes away too much of that material. And the other reason is that not only is it a 1/2 inch wide and that long, but it's also going way back here. So that would really weaken this piece. So instead of doing that, I made the tenons a little shorter, which allowed me, I think I had a 3/4 inch piece that remained intact. So I had a mortise on this side, then solid for 3/4, and then a mortise on that side. And just having that extra piece in there stiffens up that whole section of the leg. And as you guessed, this is the high stress part of the joint. A lot of technical stuff when you're building chairs, if you want them to last. Next, Rick.
Okay, next one comes.
Keep them coming. Just throw them at us. Actually, stop for just a second. So here's your commercial. If you are over 50, even if you're under 50, but if you're over 50 and if you live in an area that has cold weather, you probably have sore, aching joints. Some type of people call it arthritis. But either way, it's difficult to use your fingers the way you'd like in the shop. And trying to adjust a plane that has a little tiny adjuster knob, that's what this thing is called, is very, very difficult. The knurling wears away after a while, and sometimes they're such small diameter that it's almost impossible to do. So we saw that problem, thought about it for a long time, worked on it with a good friend of ours in Ontario named Paul Hayton, and Paul's a genius. So we give him the idea, and then back and forth, bantering, we'd come up with a solution. So this is called our adjustar. We make a replacement or an aftermarket for Wood River planes, with the exception of the number 4 and the number 3. And we also make them for Lee Nielsen planes, with the exception of the number 4?
3 and 4.
3 and 4. All the larger planes that'll fit. Unfortunately, we've sold out of the Lee Nielsen ones. Another batch are coming. We just got in a batch of the Wood Rivers, so we've got a healthy stock of those. You got to take your handle off, your rear tote, to get it on. Take the old adjuster off, put this one on, and now all of your adjustments, you have the advantage of being able to push on that lever instead of trying to grab that knob. The nice thing about it is it becomes a one finger or one hand operation again, instead of having to stop and use 2 hands to try to move that knob. That is called the adjustar. Gotta love the name. All right, back to work.
All right, Clifford Pollock.
Clifford?
He says, when repairing an old chair, can you use any glue if the old joint had used hide glue? Or do you have to use hide glue in the repair?
I don't know. But what I would do, I don't think under any circumstance you're going to get a very good bond if you're going glue on glue. So I would do it, and you know, you can do it with a knife. Just take a knife. It's not a very sturdy knife, but take that old dowel that's covered in glue, and just take your knife and just scrape off all that glue. And if you just rotate it slowly while you're doing it, you'll eventually get all that glue off and get down to some bare wood. Now, it's going to be a little harder on the opposite side in the hole, but I would even consider going in there with my drill of the same size and drilling that carefully. Don't want to ream it until you get rid of that old glue. What you want is you want to get back to having wood on wood contact. And don't expect any of the glues that we typically use to have any kind of gap filling capability. They don't. White glue, yellow glue, the two pieces of wood have to touch in order for the glue to do its job. So you may have to go in there. You can even wrap a piece of paper. Wrap a piece of paper around the inside of the joint or around the dowel. It's wood, right? To give it that little bit of extra. Or you could even, if you want to be even better at it, I would go in, I would drill the hole out. I would probably go up a size. Maybe I might even go, depending on what application you're in, you could actually drill it out. Maybe if it's a 3/8 inch hole, drill a 5/8 inch hole. Drill it out, put a solid 5/8 inch plug, round dowel, back into that hole. And once that has dried, go in and drill your new hole. And that's going to give you some alignment issues, but it's all doable. But you've got to do something to get the wood on wood contact in order to get a decent glue joint. If you're putting old glue, new glue on old glue, don't expect it to hold. And remember, yellow glue and white glue, no matter how much you put in there, is not going to fill the gap. It will not be substantial. Frick?
What is your opinion of this is from James Carey in Hilliard, Ohio.
Hi, James.
He says, what is your opinion of the use of dowel joints in chair construction?
You missed the earlier part. They suck. Dowels are not. Their dowels are the easy, the quick and the dirty. The best joint for chairs is a mortise and tenon, and locked if possible. But anytime you use dowels, just one half of the joint is always going to be weak because of the minimal long grain to long grain glue surface. So I would not use it, especially in applications in this right here. This is the high stress joint. If you use it there, sooner or later it's going to fail. I use it here, and you can get away with it because, as I said, most people don't lean on their chairs like that. Kids do. Most people lean back like this. So stay away from dowels on that particular joint.
All right, next question comes.
Say hi to Angie and Lynn out in Quispamsis, New Brunswick. Angie and Lynn are Ken's cousins. Ken works here. Ken's been with us for a couple of years. Ken's actually in charge of production in this shop. And he should be on the phone with us tonight because he's working from home. And this is Angie.
Willie's on.
Willie's on?
Yeah.
Really?
He's bored.
Did he hear my little ode to Willie earlier? He just came on? Oh, Willie, you're always late, brother.
Wait, continue telling me.
All right, so Angie is part of our team. Angie is confined to her bed because of an illness, but she's getting better, and she's coming out here to work because she's got all of her gear. Right now, what she works from home. You know, everybody because of COVID has to work from home. So Angie, that's why. So what she does, she and Lynn package all of our T-shirts. So we have 3 T-shirts that help to promote our cause, Purple Heart Project. The teal one, which was Angie's color, says "Wood Doing Good." The blue one, the original, was from Kramer on Seinfeld, "Wood is Good." And this one, our latest, is "Wood for Good." And then it's got the Purple Heart logo on the other side. So when you buy that T-shirt, it'll come all nicely wrapped in cellophane, beautiful. Nice little sticker up there with a picture of Angie and I. It was this picture, I think, when we very first met. First time I went out to see her. And it's got her A, seal of approval on there. So make sure you grab a T-shirt. Now, Willie's, I'm going to say this again for Willie's benefit because he didn't hear. So you're just going to take a quick walk around the shop. Jake, you help me here. So we meet some really interesting characters. And my brother, Dave, has a business on the side. He's a stockbroker, but his main business is driving a lawnmower tractor because he has a landscaping business. That's what he loves most. And his machines are always breaking down because he hires these bohunks to destroy this stuff. And he found Willie. Now, Willie's a retired fabricator, lives in a place called Martinon, which isn't far away from us. He's 80 years old, or will be 80 this year, we hope. And Willie can do anything with metal. He's no good with wood, but anything with metal. So we met him. I don't forget what happened, but we needed something was broken. So ever since then, he's been hanging out, and we put him to work. So he's, what?
He first started, he was friends with Roger, the electrician.
Oh, yeah?
And Roger had been bragging to his buddies about this big new workshop he had been helping out at.
That'd be this one.
So Willie happened to be coming.
Being nosy.
Dave left a check for him here so that Willie could come pick it up here. And when he came in, I showed him around. And the first thing he did for us was replace that hose on the dust collector, the one that had torn.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
the coil bound.
Okay. Well, here's what he's done since. Remember.
He hasn't left since then.
Yeah. He's 80 years old. He's about this tall. And he bounced around here like he's 45. He bounced one too many times. That's why he's in the hospital. But this is a jig that we use for grinding and sharpening the blades on our marking gauges and our mortise gauges. And we always frigged around with one piece out of wood, and it was just terrible. But it was a simple little thing, but Willie made that for us. Works great. Now we can do lots of them. If you move over here, Jake, you spot something if I miss it.
The shroud on the disc sander.
Oh, yeah. Let's go here first. So disc sanders are great, but they throw a tremendous amount of dust. And the dust collection system that came with it wasn't very good. The biggest problem was that we had an open piece down in here. So I told Willie, and he fixed it. He built a little extra shroud on there that just closes everything in, so we get great dust collection, and now it hardly blows out at all. Now, over here, we use this a lot for when we're doing the handles on our hand planes, on our saws. And the method of taking the tension off of this, there was a dial on there, and you had to crank it, and it was like a hand plane. It had no leverage whatsoever. So Willie just turned it into a crank. So now all you got to do is come in here and just wind that down, takes the tension off, and away you go. Now, the other problem we had is, and when you're in a production shop, you got to do things fast. To open up this cover, there was a wing nut in there, and you had to turn it 100 times in order to get it tight. So Willie put a little snap on there. We take that over, lift that up, change our belt, put that back down, put that thing up there, snap it down, and go back to work. The other problem was that the belt loads up really fast. Now, if you use any kind of sanding belt, you know once that belt loads up with material, it doesn't cut anymore. And I would be doing hundreds of handles, and after every one or two handles, you have to stop with the air and you have to blow it all out. So Willie made us this little thing. So it's hooked up to our compressor. So while it's running, all those little nipples in there blow air on that and keep that nice and clean. Works like a charm. Now, as we walk down this way, I'll spare you some of the details because he's built way too much. He saw us in here one time when we make mallets. We're sitting here and we're pounding, trying to get the mallet handle into the head, and you're pounding with a hammer. Well, Willie made me a die. Where is it, Jake?
It's over here.
Oh, it's all integrated into this now? No, here it is. Willie made me a die. So after the handle is turned, you got to have it perfectly sized. So that die, just like a dowel plate, we pound that down through there, and it will perfectly size the end of our dowel that goes up into the mallet head. And then he made us a press. And that press is used, a couple of things here. That press is used to push that handle down through the die. It's also used to put the handle down into the head of the mallet. Works like a charm. And the latest thing he did for this, when Ken and Ian make our saws, we drill 4 holes and we put in 4 copper pins. And then we go in and we have to flare the either side of the hole. And then we sit there. We used to do it right here. We sit there like this, and we put in a little copper pin, tap, 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 tap. And these little pieces of scraper blade allow just enough excess copper in the bottom side that after you flared this one, you'd flip it over here, and you'd finish tapping it. Well, you're teaching somebody new, and they end up hitting the brass, and there's moose tracks all over it. Willie watched that one day and said, I got a solution for you. And he probably said it just like that. I got something for you. So he made us a press. So now we set our blade in there, and that's what these little recesses are for, with the copper pins in place. The press hammers that down, flattens out the copper, and it just works like a charm. Just works like a charm. Anything else, Jake? Oh, he made us, so on all of our bandsaws, you need a light, right? You can't see. So he made us these little, two things. I'll just catch these real quick, and we'll end here with this. So, lovely bandsaw, this General, but the dust collector rod thing is made out of plastic, so they're always broken. So Willie made us one out of metal, so we just hook our hose onto there, works great. And all of our bandsaws have, except for that one, so Willie need to get back here. He just made us these little brackets that mount on there to help hold our light. Missing anything? Probably him. There's more stuff. Oh, and then the biggest thing, all of our casters. So these casters are wonderful if you have to be able to move your bench around. But the problem is, as they come from Woodcraft, they are too thin. And if you're moving your bench, you hit this first little bump and the casters bend and then you can't use them. So Willie takes them and he welds on an extra piece of steel, grinds them all off, paints them up, and now they work fantastic. And we really have some of these benches loaded down and never bothers them. We only ask them to do about 10 of those a week, so if you've been waiting for a set of them, please be patient. We can't wear him out. We don't even have them right now, so that's another reason you need to get better, Will. All right. Glad you made it on. This is the Ode to Willie show. Next.
Oh, there's some bets.
Who?
Paul Morrison's on.
Hi, Paul.
Charlie Ray.
That would be Admirable Paul yet? Admiral Paul yet?
Well, he's always been admirable.
Admirable. Is Super Dave on?
Yeah.
Soup?
We just don't acknowledge him anymore.
Yeah.
So you got to see
He's
this
probably
picture.
watching from his tractor.
You got to see this picture of Super Dave. Now, he's a big kid driving his little tractor. Only it looks like Super Dave with a couple of wheels on it because the tractor disappears, but it's a hilarious picture. Can they get that?
I'm trying to figure out what he does on it. All I do is see him driving
He just
in the
drives
snow.
around.
Someone said he mows the snow.
He's a snow mower.
It's not like he's ever doing anything.
Who else
in
is
his
on?
life.
Cool Ray.
Cool Ray?
Ray's on. And
Hey, Ray.
Mark Smith and Tony are both on.
Hey, Mark. Oh, Tony's on. So Mark is a local combat wounded vet based out of Gagetown, New Brunswick, Canadian Armed Forces. And Tony works here 2 days a week. Tony works Thursday and Friday. And if you look around, you say, wow, why is this shop so clean? Because Tony just was here on Friday. And Tony is probably the fastest worker we've ever had. Am I got the right Tony? Are you talking Tony down in Australia?
No, you're talking the right Tony. Willie just got on and just said, what did I miss?
Oh.
All right, start over.
Tony Brahadur. Tony is originally from South America. He and his mom moved to Canada when he was 10 or 11. He joined the military right out of high school. He served 23 years, combat wounded, and he gets discharged in 1 month. He will be a retired vet. So he works here 2 days a week. Hopefully, he'll end up working here 8 days a week. He's great to have. He picks up on stuff. Wow, I'm so impressed. Good to have both of you on. And Mark's the reason why we got all this stuff. Mark built our new shipping room, our stairs to go upstairs. If it wasn't for Mark, that stuff wouldn't have gotten done. And he broke one window for us. Who else?
That's it for now.
But Willie was off.
I don't know. He just commented and said,
What did I miss?
sorry I am late, but glad I made it. What did I miss?
He can rewind.
Yeah, right. Watch it tomorrow, Willie. You'll have nothing to do. Next question, Frick. Bring me back.
All right. The next question comes from John Kasarowski. And he says, what finish
Hi, John.
besides paint to use on a chair? Different on the seat versus the other parts?
What finish besides paint?
What, yeah. to use on the chair, is it different on the seat versus the other parts?
No, well, it hasn't been for me. Just depends. If you want to see the wood, then that's going to be different than if you're painting it. So this, do you remember, Jake? Did we spray this? We must have. So this seat.
Can you imagine oiling all those spindles?
No. This whole seat is sprayed with lacquer, that same lacquer that I use all the time. And how does it wear? Well, the kids have gouged the seat, but this is pine, so you're just going to have to accept that. But, I mean, there's a lot of bums on this in the run of a week, and it still seems to be in pretty good shape, so I wouldn't have any problem with recommending that finish.
Some butts.
Bums and butts?
Oh, Kyle Perrell?
Kyle Perrell?
Perrell.
From Newfoundland?
Yeah.
Hey, brother. Kyle, is he still in Newfoundland?
Yeah, he says he's still in Newfoundland.
Great to have you. Kyle was one of the first two Canadian. He and Jesse Ruffiange were the first two Canadian soldiers, vets that we had in our class when we taught up in Ontario. And I have, it's on my very first. I have Kyle. He didn't have a patch, but it came off of his beret.
You have his patch. The one that was signed by Gouge.
Right here.
Was it George or was it Gouge?
He wasn't a hockey player, so he gave it to me. Look, Kyle, how's that for being close?
I can't remember.
I don't remember who signed it either. Tell us in the comment section who signed that for you. Great guy. Okay, so I'm going to go on to this. So this rocking chair has a finish that Sam Malouf developed, and it was part beeswax. It was beeswax. It was linseed oil. There was a couple of other ingredients. I can't remember what they were, but they were all cooked up and applied. It needs to be. It's long past due for another finish. In fact, I don't think there's any finish left on that seat. But I don't have time to go back and do stuff like that. This was an oil finish. I remember specifically. I oiled this with. This would have been tung oil, and not a terribly durable finish. I mean, this got destroyed, right? I couldn't sell it to the customer that it was made for, so I ended up keeping it myself. And it sat at our front door for, how many years have we had this? This has been at least 30 years. It sat at our front door so the kids would come in, and instead of sitting here taking their boots off, their wet coats would have been draped on it. So the finish has been completely worn off in some areas, and it needs a lot of TLC, but I don't have time to give it to it. So I wouldn't recommend that oil finish for a chair that's going to have high traffic. I don't know what finish is on this, so I can't comment. This one would have been a sprayed on lacquer as well, and it's worn through. But like I said, this gets stood on. We pile lumber on it. It's a really tough and rugged chair.
Willie wants to know if you've ever made a kissing chair.
You know, Willie, I was going to, but my wife doesn't kiss me much anymore. It's kind of a really interesting chair because I'm sitting here like this, and then on the other half, she's facing that way. So it's you know what? I'm glad you said that. I've only ever seen one picture of one, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought someday I got to make that. But the other thing I want to make someday too is a rocking chair, and it wasn't a shaker chair, but the rocking chair had a cradle right there attached to it. So as the mother would rock, the baby would rock. It was really neat. Now, if your husband loved you, he'd make that for you with a little hint. But I'll show you. I'll find you the picture. I'll find you a picture of it because it's a really cool. So the mother rocks and rocks the baby to sleep. And the picture was an old picture, but she was sitting there knitting while she was rocking, and the baby was snoozing away. So the question was, what finish is on a chair? I would use the same finish on the entire chair, but I would careful in what you choose it. That's a real high traffic, the bum part of it and the handle part of it. So either put lots of finish on, several coats, or be prepared to recoat it every 5 years or so. Next, Frick.
Dennis Miko in West Virginia, USA. He says,
Hi, Dennis.
I have grandparents' Windsor chair, and all the joints are loose. How do I tighten them? Chair is 100 years old and black. Thanks.
Oh, Dennis. Well, look at this one over here. This one has come loose too. Now, I didn't make this. I bought this from a fellow woodworker in Ontario. But which one is it, Jake? Oh, this one right here. So when I lean back to see how that breaks, so these are all wedged. I don't know if you can see, but they come through the hole, and there's a cut made in it, and then it's glued, but then the wedge is driven in, and the wedge is not tightened up. So if I was going to go in and fix that, I would probably go in and somehow try to drive another wedge in there to expand that hole. But I've never used it, but there's a glue that is specifically designed for going in and securing loose chair joints where you can't take the joint apart and start over. I would probably attempt cyanacrylate on that just because it'll flow down in there, but you've got to keep it from getting over all the rest of the chair, and it's a bit of a nightmare to work that way because the one that you want to use is the one that has the consistency of water, which means it's going to run everywhere. So to go in and retighten all of the joints on a Windsor chair, wow. I don't know what to tell you other than I would seriously look at that one. It's a chair doctor comes to mind, but do a search for glue for fixing loose chair joints because it goes in, it swells the wood, and supposedly restores it to like new condition, but I have never used it, so I can't speak from experience. I can only pass on what I remember seeing. Next, Frick.
Okay, Mike Curry in Delavan, Wisconsin.
Hi, Mike.
He says, I'm about to make my first Queen Anne chair. I'm confused about the method for producing cabriole legs.
Cabriole legs, yeah.
I've seen many different ways. Do you have a method you could explain, please?
No, because I don't, not my thing, not my style. It's done on a bandsaw, typically. And you cut part of it, and you keep the part that you cut off to hold it to cut the other part, which just reduces the amount of shaping that you have to do. But it's a lot of spoke shave, it's a lot of draw knife, it's a lot of rasp, it's a lot of work. It's just not my style. I've never had any interest in doing that, so I'm sorry I can't tell you anything more than that. But again, if you do a search, I'm sure you can find. I know Fine Woodworking has had articles over the years on making that leg. You can do a stylized one, which literally is all done on the bandsaw. It doesn't have all the curves. It has curves, but it's not rounded. It's kept flats, but quick. And you can actually turn part of it too. You can turn the foot. Next, Frick.
Jay Yokas in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hi, Jay.
He says, I would like to make a couple chairs and a small table for outside. What wood and finish would you recommend for that?
Oh, well, Titebond 3 is waterproof, but only for use above the water line, meaning you don't use it in boat building down below. So it is designed to be used outside. As far as woods, boy, you want something that is not going to be susceptible to rapid deterioration from UV light, and something that's going to work well outdoors. So teak comes to mind. You think of it, what woods are used on boats because they get wet constantly and weathered, and teak would have been the number one wood used on boats. Teak's going to cost you a little bit, but you can also get Brazilian cherry known as Jatoba, and that's a miserable wood to work. It's like carving a rock, but that would wear well outside. The cedars would wear well outside, but they're not a very strong wood. So if you're doing an Adirondack chair where it's going to be relatively thick members, that's fine. But if you're doing any kind of a chair like this, where your pieces are going to be relatively small, then you've got to have a more substantial wood than cedar. You would never make a chair like that out of cedar. So number one would be teak, because it's probably the best wood for outdoor use. And then everything else is going to be a step down from that. So teak, Jatoba. I'm struggling to come up with any more. Start off with those. Frick, next.
Okay, next. Sorry. Go ahead.
One sec, there's another vet, Jeremy Brees.
Oh, Jeremy. Hey, brother. Jack was just telling me he was talking to you recently. So Jeremy came to us, what class? Do you remember? What year? 17? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
He was in Super Dave's class, actually.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
Look at him.
No wonder we didn't notice Super Dave. So Jeremy came to us. Jeremy was a sniper with the U.S. Army, and near the end of his deployment, they were hurrying to get somewhere to provide cover for a group of Canadians, and stepped on a mine essentially, and lost both legs above the knee, and so he came to our class. This was before he'd had his surgery. He was in a wheelchair, and I remember looking at him the first day. I was talking to Luther, and there he is sitting up on top of his chair trying to get behind the plane to get some weight on it. And I just remember thinking, I said to Luther, I said, you watch, he'll have the best dovetails in the whole class. And the reason I said that is because he didn't see it as an obstacle. He says, okay, I'm dealt with this, now I got to work around it. And he ended up having some of the most incredible dovetails we saw. In fact, there's a couple of videos. If Luther can dig them out, we'll put a link to them where we interviewed him, and I was blown away. We went down and modified his bench. We cut the bench down to make it a little shorter. I think we had to modify his vise so he could get at it. But great determination, great guy, great craftsman. And we got him a bench recently. The bench brigade provided him with a bench. I think Jack built it and delivered it. So great to see you, and hi to Roxy.
And he's up to 5'10" now, isn't he?
Oh yeah. So he was the first vet I knew that had the surgery where what they do, as long as the femur is intact enough, I may be telling this wrong, but they put titanium inserts up into the femur, and then the bone eventually grows around it. And then, so instead of having a prosthesis that is held on by suction, this allows them to run, do just about anything. I think he even had a choice on how tall he was going to be. Said something about the doctor said, how tall do you want to be? So they did it. Pretty impressive. Great guy. Frick, next.
All right, this one comes from Lane Cobb in Fairleigh, Vermont.
Hi, Lane.
And he
Vermont, beautiful state.
Yes, not too far from here. How can I improve the strength of a factory drilled mortise and tenon leg stretcher joint that has failed? What do you think of enlarging the bottom of the mortise with a ball mill or gouge and fox wedging the tenon?
Read that again. I got to digest all of that.
Okay, let's just do the first part.
Give me two in bits.
Yeah. How can I improve the strength of a factory drilled mortise and tenon leg stretcher joint that has failed?
A factory drilled mortise and tenon?
Leg stretcher joint.
He might be talking about
A dowel?
yeah.
Get him to clarify that. I don't know how you drill a mortise. I mean, you can use a hollow chisel mortiser, but
What if he's talking about like a domino type thing?
get him. Go to the next question. Have him come back and clarify a little bit more about exactly what he's talking about, because I'm getting a bit of a mixed message, so I can't know how to answer it. But
Okay.
try to make sure we come back to it.
Ali from Victoria in Australia.
Ali and Victoria, you're up early.
What is the best height of a chair to be comfortable for both tall and short people?
And adjustable. Well, there obviously can't. There's no answer for that because you have to. You can't satisfy both. I have a really good friend in Ontario. His name is Mike Smrek, and Mike's 7 feet tall. Mike does not hang out on my furniture. I'll tell you what this is. I'm 5'7.5". Frick. How tall are you? 6 feet? Mm-hmm. So the height of my seat is 18 inches. So you come sit on that, Frick, and tell me if it's comfortable. If you find it lacking, careful what you say. Or you won't get to sit on it again. Think of all the wonderful meals you've had at my house on that chair.
Made by your wife.
Made by my wife, my honey. What am I critiquing? It's comfortable.
Well, seat height.
Yeah, it's perfect. I have a nice 90-degree angle with my knees, and my feet touch the ground.
No pressure on the backside of your thighs and on the backside of your knee.
No.
Yeah.
That's
I think if you look it up, you'll probably find that 18 inches for the seat height is somewhere around. They give you a bit of a range, so obviously if you're going to be really tall, you'd want to add to it. But trying to make a chair that fits both would be extremely difficult if it wasn't adjustable. And I'm not sure how you would do that, but sure there's a way. Now, let me take a quick break here and tell you something. Tonight we're giving away. So to enter the draw doesn't cost you anything. We welcome support for our Purple Heart project by donation, and at every $1,000 level, we're going to give away another pair of Pinnacle spoke shaves. There's the flat bottom and the radius bottom for doing inside curves. All you have to do is register. We're also going to give away this beautiful Intarsia mousse. Speaking of mousse, my friend Moose has donated 3 garments. So the famous dead cat sweater we'll give away a draw for. The Captain is Always Right, and I'm the Captain hoodie. And the ever popularized by Frick, the Naughty Girl t-shirt, available in 2 colors and numerous sizes.
It's been a while since we've had that modeled.
We have. Our memories are fading, fortunately.
I still have my Christmas weight that I'm working on.
One last thing. One more thing. I want one more commercial.
Outside.
If you, same old thing. I try to customize our tools to the people who are buying them, and our average customer is in his early 60s. If you're dealing with a bit of arthritis in the hand and you have a difficulty in gripping things, you've seen what we've done. Just about everything we sell that has a round handle has been taped. I find it most advantageous on my clamps. If you're trying to get any kind of torque on a clamp that has a small round handle like that, it's almost impossible. So like the top of a hockey stick, we tape it with stick tape, none other than. I tape my mallet. Why? Well, it's a smooth handle. It's almost impossible to hold. That, I have tons of control and I don't have to grip it tight. Our mallets, same thing, improves the grip. It all started with this, our fret saw. The handle on that fret saw was so small and slippery, you could not use it with any kind of control. And one day I remember thinking, I said, gee, I wonder if I just taped that like my hockey stick. Top end of your hockey stick is very important. That's where you get all your torque and your shot. I usually have one hanging right here somewhere, but I don't see it. What do you into, Mick?
Is he alone?
Huh?
Is he alone?
I don't know if there's anybody out there or not. So I have a video you can watch. Luther, maybe you can put a link in there on how you do this, how you tape it. But any tool that you have that you need to improve the grip, just do that. Oh, this is the other one. We sell them like this. So there's my screwdriver for adjusting the blade and chip breaker. And again, a small handle is very difficult to apply any torque, so we tape these up like that. So we've always had lots of demand for the tape. We're doing a half price sale. So normally you would get 2 rolls for $10. Now you get 4 rolls for $10 and a limited time. I don't even think it's gone on live yet, but it will. The newsletter is coming out in the next day or so.
Maple butter.
That's his favorite.
What's that?
Maple butter is his favorite.
That's maple butter, but that one's not yours. That's just a little one. Yes. So if you like maple syrup, this is the best you'll find. It's dark. Is that good?
He said that's good maple syrup.
Is that good maple butter?
Yeah.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah.
Do you eat it? It's a little one. Are you the one that gets into all my maple butter?
No, that's maple syrup.
That's maple syrup. You get your pancakes mixed up with your toast. Yeah, why don't you leave that one just like that? Yeah, so maple butter and maple syrup, sweeten your day. Yes, that's an adjuster. That's tape. Stick tape. Yes. And that's a mousse. Yeah, that's a mousse. All right, don't forget to register for the draw. Happy to give stuff away. And a big salute to Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus who provide those gifts that we give away. Very generous of them. Oh, that's sharp. Put that up there a little bit. What's he after now? Still more maple butter? All right. You're stealing the show.
Who's supervising him?
He's unsupervised.
There was no one out there for real?
Somebody must be. Maybe they abandoned him on purpose.
Yeah, I can see that.
See you, Mick. Why don't you leave that one there? I think there's one in the fridge for you. Yeah, just in case, right? Well, there's more. Next, Frick.
Okay, next one is from...
I kid you not, the kid, they'll come in and he's got the maple butter and he's literally sucking it back by the spoonful. No wonder he doesn't sleep at night.
Okay, Lane Cobb. No, wait. No, that's the one I just did. Okay, Keith Small in Northern Ireland.
Hi, Keith.
He says, Rob.
A lot of foreigners tonight.
Yes.
Out from away. What do they call them? Out of towners.
He says, hi, Rob. Have you ever made a chair using the old-time method of turning the spindles at the back from green timber? What are the advantages of doing this as opposed to using dry timber, if any?
No, I haven't. I always wanted to, but I got stuck in that situation where you had to make a living. So what they would do, bodgers they were called. This is a really interesting thing. You should look it up. Mostly in England. But bodgers would literally spend part of the year empty, part of the year in the woods, and all they would do is turn chair parts. Now, that's a little off topic, but in building that old style chair, the way they would do it is they would drill the hole when it was green. So part of the tenon would go into the hole, and that was drilled green. So when they would put it in there, and as the wood would dry, it would shrink, and it would shrink and make that very tight. And seems to me, I remember reading somewhere that they would actually turn a bit of a ball, not a ball, but a bit of a bump on the end of the tenon. So the tenon would go in, and it would be larger at the front than at the back, but because the wood was green, it was almost pliable. And they would force that tenon in, and then as the chair legs dried, they would dry around that bulbous bulb. How do you say O-U-S on the end of a bulb?
Bulbous?
Bulbous?
Yeah.
That's a word. And it would just, without glue, it would secure the joint. Really interesting stuff, and I would love to be able to do it someday. Thanks for bringing it up. Next, Frick.
Mike Hollenbeck in Southwest Louisiana.
Hi, Mike.
Says, is there a formula you use to determine the leg splay, or is it more of a, that looks about right?
The leg splay. Well, so when he refers to leg splay, if you look at this chair, the splay, the legs go out like this. Now, if those legs were straight, that would make for a somewhat unstable chair, side to side. So it splays out to make it nice and solid. The shaker bench, the legs are straight or perpendicular coming down this way, but as you can see, they're splayed from the side. And the reason is, your leg is here. If it went straight down, when you're leaned back, the center of gravity is very dangerously close to tipping the chair, having the chair tip over. So by splaying back like that, how do you determine that? There's probably some numbers somewhere, but you know what? Interesting. It was Mike, right?
Yep.
Mike, that you said that, because I always figure that the appearance is more important than anything else. And I'll work with something like that. Remember, I always love to build a model first, do a mock-up, and you can tell if there's too much splay or not enough. Not enough, it would almost look unbalanced. That looks nice and solid. When I look at that right now, I think, wow, that just looks rock solid, great foundation. So go by eye, trust your eye. If you're wrong, fix it on the next one.
Okay. Tommy R. in Oklahoma.
Hey, Tommy.
Are you going to switch the battery now?
No, you can ask him the question also.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Jake has to switch his battery. Tommy R. in Oklahoma. He says, is a sculpted stool the easiest entry into chair making, or would you recommend tackling a different chair first?
Well, if you're going to design yourself, I suppose a stool would be a pretty simple way of getting into it. If you're going to build somebody else's, well, I think you could tackle just about anything. In answering that question, Jake, tell me when you're back on. I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna talk about the Sam Maloof rocker. Tell me when we're back up. Just give me a second. There? We got video?
Not yet.
Do we have video yet?
Nope. And giddy up.
We're back. Okay. So I remember being in a class when it was proposed that we each in the class build a Sam Maloof rocker. And if you haven't seen one of these before, very intimidating. Sam Maloof was a fantastic craftsman, was an even better human being. But his work was meticulous. There was only 3 of us in the class, and And we were, you know, it was a great class, 3 credit hours for doing something I'd want to do, which is woodwork. But that chair was extremely intimidating. If you look at it, you see nothing but, there's nothing straight, there's nothing square. It's every angle, it's all sculpted. Wow, how am I going to do that? But if you stop and say, well, wait a minute, why don't we just take one piece at a time? So you take this back spindle, for instance. Well, you know it's because of the shape it is, it's got to come out of a piece of wood that measures, this is the farthest point out this way, and this is the farthest point out that way. Then you need a piece of wood that's going to be that wide by that thick, and it goes up to there and down into there by about that long. And then you would draw that outside shape, and you would draw the back shape. And you would go over to the bandsaw, and you'd do a 2-dimensional piece. And then you would come in, and you would shape that, shape this, and shape that. And you know, it wasn't that difficult, one piece at a time. And same thing with the seat, and same thing with the arms and that crest rail. One piece at a time. And as you went through the process and it started to come together, you realize, you know what? If you break it down to individual steps, it's not difficult. So any chair you tackle, I probably wouldn't go at a, it was mentioned a Queen Anne chair in the beginning where there's a lot of carving. If you're not into carving, that can be very intimidating. But I'd say start with a simple, what I might call a country style chair that has a seat, a back rail, 4 legs, and go at that. Do it well, make it nice and strong. And then as you're doing it, go in and try to find things to refine it. So what I did with this, to just elevate it a little bit or lighten it, instead of this being straight across, there's a slight radius under here. And it matches the radius along here. And then I put the radius underneath here and underneath here. And it just kind of throws some continuity in there so that you see that repeated pattern. You see this negative space, and that negative space is the same as repeated down here, and it's repeated over here. So that's just some very simple elements of design, but as far as the actual building, it's not hard. And when you think about it, this joint is on an angle, and it's sloped down, but that's not difficult either once you think about it, just doing one step at a time and going through the process. Don't start off with a piece of teak. Start off with something. The first one of those that I ever built, I'm sure I built it out of pine because I didn't have to do the joinery. I just had to cut the pieces, screw them in from the outside, just to get the overall shape to see if I like it. And then it would be a matter of going back and say, okay, now we've got to add the joinery to this once we've got the overall shape. Very simple process. I think someday we're going to teach some classes on furniture design because I haven't done that for such a long time, but I really enjoyed it. Very rewarding to start from literally from the ground up. Next question, Frick. How is our time?
We got 25 minutes left.
Good. Keep going.
Got a couple questions about the Maloof chairs, actually. Marshall in San Diego says,
Hi, Marshall.
I am building a Maloof-style rocking chair, and the chair has too much lean backward.
Oh, Marshall, brother, you're a
runners.
man after my own pain. So you see this? All we had to go by was in the class, and the class was taught by Ed Hinckley, professor at BYU. He's dead now. Great guy. We went down and spent a weekend at a Sam Maloof conference, came back and decided to do this. All we had to go by were what we thought were an accurate set of plans. And Ed had them professionally enlarged so that we could use it as a full size, not realizing that it wasn't drawn to, it was drawn to scale, but it wasn't drawn accurately. So if you look at my chair, there's way too much splay on this. You can't read something comfortably. This would need to be up about here if you were going to use it for a chair for watching TV, not the news. If you were watching anything that was just entertaining, like Rob Cosman video or something like that. If you wanted to read the news, you can't read the newspaper because you're way back here. So
Which
my...
is a good thing.
What?
Which is a good thing.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Read a book. Get something good. But it's comfortable, but it's comfortable only if you want to fall asleep, and I got 20 minutes left to do, so I can't do that.
Really, never seen you sit down so much.
It's enough out of you, Willie. So there is too much splay in mine as well. I would have liked that to have been straight. And I've seen 3 or 4 actual Maloof chairs, and they don't have that same splay. So ask your question again. You just set me off right there when you said that. Read his question again.
So he said, I am building a Maloof style rocking chair, and the chair is too much leaning backward on the runners. The legs are currently just attached with screws to the pads. I am unable to shift the chair forward on the front pads. How should I fix this situation?
So read it again. Read it again for me, please. So I think he's talking down here. He's not talking the back.
Yeah, he's saying the legs are currently just attached with screws to the pads. I am unable to shift the chair forward on the front pads. How should I fix this situation?
I don't quite understand enough of what he's getting at to give him a good answer, or at least my best shot at it. I apologize. I'm trying to follow you, but I don't know exactly what you mean. If you can restate your question a different way, we'll take another stab at it. But I'm not, like I said, I can't comment on that because I don't exactly understand what he means. What's the next one, Frick?
Super Dave just wanted to say that he pictures you sitting at the head of the shop, sitting in one of those chairs, giving out orders as you rock back and forth.
That's a very good image. You hold that.
Where'd my questions go? Okay, so another one about...
I picture Super Dave in one of these with big tractor wheels on the back, little tractor wheels on the front, and him sleeping while, what's the cat's name? Not Fluffy. What's Dave's cat's name?
It's,
Mr. Tinklesworth?
Yeah, Mr. Tinklesworth.
Well, Mr. Tinklesworth steers, and your wife watches from the living room, laughing hilariously.
All right, this is another Maloof chair question. Gary Elmore in Libby, Montana.
Hi, Gary.
He says, I have built several Maloof chairs, but after a couple months, I did not have smooth joints where long grain meets the cross grain. I believe some people called it a glue creep. I used Type Bond 3 to glue it up. It did not appear to be thickness change in the wood, but just a thin line on the glue joints. I've had this happen on segments in wood bowls turned on the lathe also. What's going on?
Well, we got a couple of glue creeps in this shop. I've had the same thing. I can feel it right here. And right back here. And that might actually be a little bit of glue. I used regular yellow glue or white glue on this.
Here too.
So, I mean, you're bound to have a little bit of wood movement in there. I wouldn't think it would be too terrible much because this is radial, so it's not going to move a lot, and so is that. But I know exactly what you're talking about, and I don't know why. Although I've been very surprised in my life by the performance of yellow or white glue that people just assume is the greatest thing. I've had it fail. I know Type Bond 2 will lose 75% of its strength at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I used it on a bent lamination piece of furniture, and sitting in a gallery showroom behind glass on the sunny side of the street, and the thing just started breaking apart. What is going on? I came home and I had a piece left over. It was 3/4 inch pieces of ash bent around, and not a very tight radius. Put it in my mother's oven at 120 degrees, pop. It failed. I contacted Franklin and asked them, and sure enough, that was the problem. So you've got to look into that. You just can't use these glues assuming that they're going to work in all applications. They're designed to work in this range. You step outside of it on either end, and you're kind of at your own risk. So you got to do a little bit of research and find a glue that's appropriate to it. But all I can tell you is I've had that same problem, but I don't know what to cure it. I haven't found any. I use Type Bond 3 for most everything today, but I do it. I haven't needed anything outside of that. I have used the 2-part plastic resin glue that they use for boat building, but that's such a pain to deal with. Just to stir it up is a nightmare. Frick, next.
Okay, Mike Johnston in the chat wants to know, can you talk about the importance of grain direction for the various components of a chair, particularly rocking chairs?
Grain direction? Mm-hmm. Well,
Let me talk about this one.
This one? I didn't make this one, as I mentioned. So the grain on the seat is running this way. And would there be any disadvantage to having it run that way? Probably not. And I say that only because you've got a big, thick piece of wood. So with that thickness, you're really not having to worry too much about anything. There's enough mass there to cover it. Obviously, your spindles. Now, it's better to rive them. So what that means is instead of just cutting taking a piece of wood, going to the bandsaw and cutting out a 3/4 inch piece and turning it down, you're going to have the grain exit it's not necessarily going to follow the piece. It's going to go off, and that's going to be weak. So when you rive it, you split it, and it splits, it follows the grain line. So Luther just got finished doing this in a chair that they made. And what that means is the grain would literally remain parallel to that piece all the way down. And that would make your strongest spindle. This bent piece, you're going to want that grain to be perfectly parallel to that line so that it will bend. If that piece of wood was cut out of a normal board and the grain went off to a bit of an angle, when you try to bend that would most likely split where the grain started to veer off. So very critical that grain be parallel and nice straight grained lumber. Same thing with this back crest rail, which has got a pretty serious radius or curve in that. These legs underneath are pretty strong. They're made out of oak, so there's lots of strength there, and I wouldn't worry too much about it simply because of the size of them. Same thing with these stretchers. The rockers, again, you're going to want straight grain lumber for all of these pieces because they're in a high stress situation. So straight grain stuff is going to give you the most resilience. You get anything that gets some squirrely grain in it, and those little short fibers don't have a lot of resilience, and if they get stressed, they're probably going to break or crack. So hope that helps. I think when it comes to chair building, the straighter the grain, the better. That's where you want to stay away from the figured stuff, because you're going to what you get in beauty, you're going to sacrifice in strength, and you need it in a chair. You don't want somebody sitting in your chair and collapsing it. Terribly hard on the ego. Yours and theirs. Next, Frick.
A second.
We lose Rex?
Oh yeah, he's been gone for a
He's
while.
probably dishing out maple butter.
Could use a Perrier. I'm dry. Parched, even.
Oh, you've been working so hard.
Well, I have got to go from chair to chair. You know how much room that is? Plus, waiting for Frick to come up with questions.
Luther's
Are you
typing.
short of them?
I am, actually. We only got 19 questions total that were pre-submitted.
Really? I thought there was going to be a ton. Are there any
And-
coming in live?
Yeah, that's
How many people do we have on?
Okay, here's a question.
916.
Yeah, we have 916. And Luther's answering most of them. He tells me which ones to ask. He says, where does the strength come from the shaker chairs that are tall back and made with dowels? I'm translating Luther here. Where does the strength come from the shaker chairs that are tall back and made with dowels?
Well, if this is a bench, but they also make a chair, or the Shakers made a chair that looked very much like this. So if you can imagine a chair being just this section of it, this is like rope. I used to work on a tugboat right out of high school, and we would deal with big lines that were that thick, big, huge polypropylene lines. And all it was thousands of small strands, any one of which you could take and snap it easily. But collectively, it was extremely strong. If I only had one or two spindles in there, you'd lean on it and you would break it. But when you're sharing that load, and this long piece of timber is helping to spread that load. In other words, this big piece of timber is not going to bend enough in one area to put enough stress on this to break it. Because as the stress is being applied to this one are all getting their share. So safety in numbers. And it gives you some spring. I've made 3 or 4 of these. And I've made, I think one either sold it or left it somewhere, maybe out in Calgary. I've made these spindles out of ash. I've made them out of oak. I think I actually made them out of I know I've made them out of birch. and they've all been sufficiently strong that never had a problem breaking them. And if you got 3 adults on here leaning on this, that's a fair bit of weight, but it's pretty strong, pretty springy, really comfortable. So you can keep it light.
Would that be a situation where you'd want to rive those as well?
Well, ideally that's the way they would have been done. I did when I made these, some I turned and some I did on a shave horse, and I shaped them all with a draw knife and a spoke shave, which is a lot of work to get those round enough. But I wanted that feel that came from having it not turned, but actually shaped. This leg down here was not turned. That was shaped with a spoke shave. I run my hand around and I can feel the little facets. So choose your wood carefully. A 3/8 inch spindle made out of ash is going to be a lot stronger than a 3/8 inch spindle made out of poplar or even walnut. The ash is going to spring a long way before it'll snap. Same size wood of a different species might not have any give at all before it breaks. Next, Frick.
Okay, so Charles McBride says,
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Rob, what are your most influential books on chair making?
Hey, Charles. Most influential books on chair making. Oh, wow. I don't make a lot of chairs, but there was a book, I think it was called the Rocking Chair Book. Now, this would have been out of print a long time ago. And it was more along the history of rocking chairs. I found it fascinating. That's where I found that one that I was telling Megan about, where it was the rocking chair / cradle. The Rocking Chair Book. I remember it specifically. I have it somewhere, either upstairs in my office or home. Any other books dedicated to chair making? Tom Moser wrote a book on shaker furniture, and there are several chairs in there. And the nice thing about that book, it's called Making, I think it's just called, is it called Making or Building Shaker Furniture? Anyways, it's a soft cover, yellow cover, and every piece in there gives you the plans on how to build it. And it's pretty simple stuff, but fun to do. I think that would be it.
MASH question?
Oh, a MASH question. Love it.
From Randy Seeley. He said, which MASH character was supposed to be a one-off who became a regular cast member?
Klinger. Klinger was only supposed to be in the one episode, but he really hammed it up well enough that he got himself a full-time job. Speaking of which, I just want to tell you something. So in our new shop that we're building over yonder, it's 4,000 square feet. One half of that is going to be our teaching classroom, Purple Heart Teaching Classroom. It's going to be called the Joe Power Memorial Shop. More on that later. The other half, 1/3 of that, 2/3 of that is my new shop, and the other third is our mess hall where we are going to feed our students. So when you come to the workshop, we'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner in there. Kitchen, we're putting in a kitchen. We've got the dining hall already being made. And I'm a huge MASH fan, as you may have guessed. Plus, what we do is all about showing appreciation to our military. So this is going to be the MASH mess hall. And I'll show you when we get there. I have a fellow that works here, Harold Snodgrass, great craftsman. Harold was a cabinet maker that retired and then came to work with us. And one day I said, I wish we had somebody that could paint MASH scenes on the inside, on the 4 walls inside of our mess hall. And he said, I got the guy for you. So he introduced me to Kevin Lasky. And Kevin is a finished carpenter, but loves to paint. No formal training, but incredible work. So we went to work on this. So he's never done anything bigger than, pictures or Christmas card size. Now I got him doing this huge mural. And we took the scene in the first episode of MASH where Radar has the football and he says, choppers, and everybody stops and says, I don't hear any, and he says, wait for it. And then the scene changes, you're looking behind Radar off into the mountains and you see two Bell choppers coming across carrying the wounded. So we have that picture, but there's some other stuff in there I'm not going to tell you now, but it's going to be really awesome. Tony has managed to help us get some military, army tents, and we're going to make that place look like a first-class dining hall mess. So thanks for the MASH question. Next.
Okay, Susan Lucas. Where did she go?
Susan in Florida? Sue in Florida?
No.
She's
From her?
on.
Huh? Is she on?
Yeah, Sue.
That's
Hi,
Sue.
Sue.
That's-
Wish we were down there visiting you, but
Yeah, this would be...
COVID wields a big stick.
I can't even talk about it.
Yeah, every
Sucks.
time we shovel snow, we talk about it.
But that's not who this is. This is Susan Lucas, and she said, "What about floating tenants for chair construction?"
Well, I'm not a. That's so. What she's referring to is a machine. It's called the one I'm thinking of is the Festool Domino, and what it does is it cuts essentially a mortise on two pieces, and then you take a block of wood that is like a tenon, and it fits into both. They work. They're probably plenty strong, but I'm not here to address professional furniture makers who are trying to make a living building furniture. That's got to be done with speed. I'm here to deal with the folks who like to do this because they enjoy it, and I am all about developing the skill to be able to do something. At the end of the day, whether anybody else knows or cares, that doesn't matter to me. I like looking at something that I have built with my hands, and I think, wow, look at that. That's incredible. Well, I say it to myself. And it's all about David Pye, an English craftsman, coined the phrase, workmanship of risk. End result is dependent upon your skill and nothing else. There's nothing predetermined. Thickness plane, you stick a board in there, leave the room, come back, you're going to thinner board on the other end. Take a rough piece of lumber and a scrub plane, join a smoother pair of winding sticks, and turn that rough board into a dimensionally stable, flat, smooth, and square on all six surfaces. That's something to be proud of. So when it comes to joinery, even though a mortise and tenon is the least appreciated, because the only time you'll ever see it again is if it failed, and then you wish you didn't see it. But I still like to do it by hand. Maybe a little bit of power tools involved sometimes, but I'd love to do it by hand. So I'm not into the domino. I'm not into the dovetail jigs that do it for you. None of that. So I'm sorry, I'm the wrong person to ask about that. So I can only say that I imagine they work, but I have no experience with them. Next, Frick.
Okay, this one comes from Bland MacArthur.
Just before you finish, remember to sign up for our draw. We're giving away Spokeshaves. We're giving away the Dead Cat sweater, the Captain is Always Right hoodie, the Naughty Girl t-shirt, the Intarsia mousse. Don't forget to get your maple syrup. And we did our 2 commercials tonight. Remember, tape is on half price. You can tape up anything that stands still in your shop. And don't forget your adjustar. If you really, look, we wouldn't have gone through the effort of making these if it didn't work. It will literally allow you to use your plane again. And I've had so many people email me and say, I haven't been able to use my plane because I couldn't manipulate the adjuster knob. Now I can. Awesome. Job done. Frick, sorry, interrupted.
All right, this is probably the last question of the evening. It comes from Bland MacArthur. He or she says, what is the reason that using a spoke shave is better than turning a leg?
Oh, no, not better. Not better at all. Not everybody can turn. Not everybody wants to turn. And sometimes they didn't have access to a lathe, so they would shape it by hand. And it's like this. Here's what I'm trying to get at, if I can find it. I like to do things or build things in such a way. Jake, where's that drawer that we had earlier today when we were filming? It doesn't belong. It's just a drawer that doesn't. It's a drawer that doesn't belong to anything. It's over here. No, it's not.
It's in the corner.
Oh, right. So I worked as an assistant to a man named Richard Latrobe Bateman in Aspen, Colorado at Anderson Ranch Arts Center in 1987. We didn't hit it off those 2 weeks, but I did appreciate something he said, and he loved tool marks. Not errant tool marks, but tool marks that were there for a reason. So I like to sometimes do things that people find and are surprised to find them. So if you looked at this drawer, in its working position, you would see the drawer front. You would see the side of the drawer. You would see the inside of the drawer front. You would see the side inside of the drawer. You would see the top side of the drawer bottom. You would see the inside of the drawer back. You would rarely ever see the drawer bottom or the back of the drawer. On furniture built by country furniture, to save time and effort, they wouldn't even bother finishing. This would be rough. Same thing on the bottom. Maybe right off the saw, totally rough. So every once in a while, when I do a solid wood drawer bottom, I'll leave that drawer bottom right off of the scrub plane. So you run your hand over there and you feel all those ridges from the scrub plane. And people say, oh, wow, that's interesting. Well, same is true when you shape a spindle or a leg with a spoke shave instead of turning it. Turning it, you're going to expect it to feel round. Coming off a spoke shave, you want to get as round as possible, but as I run my hand over that, I can feel the multiple little facets, and it just gives it a bit of texture that it wouldn't otherwise have, and it just is different. So for no other reason then, it's different. Not something you expected. All of these spindles, the back spindles and all the bottom spindles and legs were shaved on a shave horse, and they would all be a little bit different. Now what I did is I drove the bottom section through what's called a dowel plate. I mounted mine to a block of wood, but that's a Lee Nielsen dowel plate. So if you wanted it to be ½ inch to perfectly fit into a ½ inch hole, you would drive that through and it would come out a ½ inch on the opposite side. And then I would shape it from there up to here, and the top of this I think was 1/4 inch, maybe it was 5/16. So I would drive the first inch of it into here and then pull it out, and that would leave a little bit of frayed area, but I would simply shape the spindle down until I got right to that frayed area, and then I knew that that was going to fit in there properly, and it was going to fit in there properly. Good question. Hope you like the answer. Make sure you sign up for our draw. We're giving away the spoke shaves. We're giving away the moose. We're giving away the contributions from moose. If you don't get one of these in the draw, go buy your own. Pat's Secret Garden, Frick will put the link in. I promise you, it is the warmest. Your wife will love you. It's the warmest garment you will ever have on. Don't forget your maple syrup. Don't forget your Adjust Star for your plane. It'll make it so much easier, I promise. Frick.
We ready?
How are we on numbers? Any more vets to say a shout out to? No?
We're at 1,800.
So we're giving away one set. Unless somebody wants to bump it up to 2,000, I'll give you a minute. How many people do we have registered for the draw, Frick?
We had 681.
681. So you have a 1 in 100 chance of winning something. We're giving away possible 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gifts. Close.
You want to wrap it up and then we'll
What
do the
time is
draw?
it?
It's 9 o'clock.
All right. Well, let me say my goodbyes and thank yous to Frick behind the scene, or actually behind the mic. Jake behind the camera. Rex behind Frick. Megan over here behind Jake, taking care of tallying our donations and spotting our vets. Ken's at home helping out. Luther's down in California, or in Washington, working his little butt off, making furniture. Should be there right now. And then, of course, we have Super Dave driving his tractor around to melt the snow.
With the heat of the engine.
With the heat of the engine. And Willie, get well soon. We send you our best. Praying for you. Am I forgetting anybody? And Angie and Lynn, have a wonderful night. Frick, are we doing one or are we doing two?
I don't know if you gave him long enough to hear it and then.
I think we should also give out a shout out to Dora Seeley. It's her birthday today. Her husband is a huge fan. She wanted a birthday shout out.
Oh, Doris, where does she live?
Dora.
Dora?
Doesn't say.
Dora, and I imagine you're probably 29. Hope this is a wonderful birthday. Happy birthday.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video. Only 283 likes out of 960 viewers. So
They obviously don't like us. What are we doing wrong? Tell us. It was an interesting topic. I think it was a really good topic. It's something that we didn't normally talk about. I hope you got lots of good information out of it. Don't forget your tape. And while supplies last, it's 2 for 1. You tape up everything. It's so advantageous on your handles on your clamps. Even the new Bessies that have these rubberized handles, which is better than what the wooden ones were in terms of grip, but I still find that they're just too smooth. You put that tape on the way we do it, and you'll be able to squeeze the life out of anything. What's that?
Dora's from Alabama.
Dora's in Alabama. Well, happy birthday in Alabama, Dora. All right, Frick, let's do our draw.
Let's do it. We have
what
693 names.
So let's start off with, should we start off with the moose?
Sure.
The Intarsia moose. Who's the lucky one that's going to get to hang this on their office wall?
The winner of the moose is Bradley Hoskins in Tennessee.
Hey, Brad.
All right.
Congratulations.
What's next?
Let's go to let's do the dead cat. You tell us what size you want. We'll contact you, or you contact us. Who's getting the dead cat sweater?
Tonight's dead cat goes to Doc Bailey in Nebraska.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Doc, you'll be warmer than you've ever been. All right, let's do the Naughty Girl.
Naughty Girl.
The Naughty Girl t-shirt. We need pictures of these, by the way. You people that are winning this stuff, you need to send us pictures of it so we can post it.
Wow. Paul Nada in Rosse.
Really?
Rosse,
that
yeah.
close.
That close.
Wow. Paul, tell us what
Rosse-
size she wants.
Rosse,
Unless
New
it's
Brunswick.
Unless it's for you.
that's for you, yeah. And now the Captain is Always Right hoodie. Big thanks to Moose in the City Market at St. John, New Brunswick. PatSecretGarden.com. Who's getting the Captain's Always Right?
John Helfrich in California.
Hey, John. Congratulations. And now who's getting the pair of spoke shaves? These are Pinnacle spoke shaves, a flat shave and a round. The round one is round front to side to side, front to back. So doing an inside radius.
And they have IBC blades.
And yes, they have specifically have IBC blades.
Okay, and the grand prize winner is Dean Smithman in Wolverhampton, UK.
We're only 10 away, so
We $10?
from 2.
Oh, well then we'll do another one. Dean in Southampton, UK?
No, Wolverhampton, UK.
Wolverhampton, UK. Dean, congratulations. So we'll do one more. We're close enough. We're going to do one more draw for another set of spoke shaves.
And
Drum roll.
And the winner is... You got to be kidding me. It's Willie.
Willie? What's he going to do with that?
I'm dead
Are you
serious.
serious?
Willie, well, yeah. We added him.
Willie
As-
Grand Bay?
Willie and Graham.
Well, that ought to make you feel good, Willie. Tell me that wasn't rigged. Jake had something to do with it.
No, really. The camera's on it.
Willie's
That's
last name
hilarious.
is Dubé. Willie Dubé from Grand Bay. He parlez-vous français? We done?
I'm just waving goodbye
Oh.
to the frick cam. But yes, we are done.
Well, that's great. What a great way to end it. We will save postage on that one.
I'm the one
All
that
right.
lost it.
Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was beneficial. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm not sure what the topic is, but it'll be posted soon. Please don't forget to register for our newsletter so you get notified of this stuff. Big thank you to Luther for all the stuff that he does. If you're enjoying our YouTube videos, Luther's the guy that you never hear about. He's the one that writes the script, does all of the directing, tells Frick what to edit, puts it all together. So we just take orders. And thank you to all the people that I've already mentioned that help us put this on. We will see you in 2 weeks.